decisive competitive enabler. So now we are 1 year later. Is that prediction taking shape? I think that's one of the questions. Our goal today is to separate the promise from the real word and the real value. Where does GenAI make a difference? And how we can integrate it safely and effectively in the insurance operating model. So to explore those questions, I'm joined by 4 panelists who together represent a full ecosystem. And that's very interesting. So let me first join Orna Carnier, managing partner from FinTLV Ventures, a global fund focused on insurtech innovations. With more than 25 years of experience in insurance, including Chief Strategy Innovation and Business Development Officer at AIG, Orna brings a deep hands-on understanding of how AI is transforming the value chains across the industry. Next, on my far end, is Marc Lauer. And Marc Lauer is the chairman of the board of Foyer Group since April 25, and after 10 years of serving as CEO at Foyer. And Marc also plays a key role representing the Luxembourg insurance sector as vice chairman of the ACAID, but also Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce. Our next panelist is Philippe Pais, Chief Customer Officer at LuxProvide. Philippe helps democratize access to supercomputing and enables sovereign, secure data and AI projects across industries. And before joining LuxProvide, Philippe holds senior position at SAP, Microsoft and Amazon, among others. And last but not least, we have Christian Rolla, General Manager and Executive Member of the Board at Liberty Mutual Insurance Europe. And Christian is overseeing commercial and specialty insurance operations with more than 20 years of experience, including leadership roles in global insurance and reinsurance entities. He combines financial and operational depth. So I think we can give a warm welcome to the panelists. And I'm Patrice Witz, partner in PwC as advisory technology partners. So welcome on board. And before we deep dive into the use case, because I think that's what also we want to hear is what are the practical examples, I want to step back a little bit and reflect on the bigger picture. 1 year ago, in the discussion that we hold at the ACAID Insurance Day, there was a lot of discussion around the fact that it was about testing, experimenting, observing. And today, the landscape is changing fast. Technology is maturing, solutions are multiplying, and competitive pressure is increasing. So I think one of the first questions that I want to raise to the panel is it now the right moment to accelerate on GenAI and why? So I would start with Marc. Marc, what's your view on that?
It would be very astonishing if I would say, no, AI has no impact. No, I think it will have an enormous impact. It's a revolutionary technology. It is a disruptive technology also to our business. So if I may paraphrase a well-known movie, I would say to all, to my company, but also to the other companies, run, Forrest, run. And at the end of the day, you will get a little bit more than a box of chocolate. One thing I would just say, we have also to not only to get it know about the potentialities, but also on the limits to where we go. I think sometimes you have the impression since ChatGPT was published that the public, a lot of our stakeholders think AI is a solution, what is the problem? There are a lot of wet dreams about AI, and I think we will discuss a little bit later on that too.
Thanks, Marc. Felipe, on your side, what's your view?
Well, I think that it was time 1 year ago, and definitely it's time now. Not only because in the last year there was a lot of maturity in the models, in the companies, in the infrastructures, more experimentation, more use cases, so definitely, well, if you don't jump now, probably you will not run like Forrest, and you will lose the train. And then to get the train on the next station, it will be very difficult, because it's a speed train, and it will not stop.
Thanks, Felipe. Christian.
Yeah, I mean, agreed with Felipe. If not now, when, right? I think, I work for Liberty Mutual, and the group think about this is that it's the key enabler towards long-term competitiveness. But at the same time, if you look at it, is it really competitiveness? I feel like it's a question of survival. Like, if we move on in that environment where AI is part of the normal technology, it's no longer just competitiveness. Everyone is doing that. So if you're not able to adapt, it's a question of survival of your business model, right? So I think that should be the long-term thinking around this. And I think insurance industry in general is ripe for that, because if you look at historically, we've always been accused as very late in terms of adopting technology, right? So that means we don't have this huge technological depth. But at the same time, when you look at the industry, we are coming off years of hard market. That means very good results over the years. You've been able to build strong balance sheet position over those years. So you have this need for technology, and at the same time, you have a strong capital position that allows you to fund those strategic investments. So yeah, if not now, when?
Okay, thanks, Christian.
So I will just add one little thing. So of course, Rand, but from another movie, as the cat told to Dorothy, if you don't know where you want to go, it doesn't matter which path you take. So I think it's super important also to understand and know where we want to go with the Gen AI and with implementing the technology, because at the end, it's a tool. So we will talk about it later, I guess, I know. But yeah, we need to know where we want to go and, of course, run for it.
Okay, so there is a source of urgency. So let's now get to the heart of the discussion and explore the use cases and understand whether and how Gen AI can be a competitive edge, especially I'm talking about the last panel where competitiveness was also in the discussion. So in the process and in the productivity, do you have examples where Gen AI and agentic has been applied in your respective companies? Mark, again, on your side, first example.
I think there will be no area in the company which there will be no impact of AI. Let's start with IT. Coding is now, I think, quite clear that everybody will try to use AI. On the other hand, some years ago already, when we started thinking in Foyer about AI, I always explained a dream. It was not a budget goal, but it was the fact that I think on the long run, 75% of all claims, like in general insurers we are, non-life insurers we are, should be handled without human intervention, so through AI. And then on the other hand, you also can go to the front side, to the front part of the company. AI can help to spot better the clients, to understand better the clients, to know where they might be not happy with you and in risk of canceling the contract, or where they're happy with you and ready to get some upsell.
And what did you had some challenges in the implementation of those processes in the company?
Yeah, everything seems easy, and especially if you're CEO or even better, chairman, you click with and you express your idea. But the way the company has to go through it, there's a long process, and for the moment we are not able to use AI on the full process. So what are we doing now? We're using it at certain parts of the process. And the danger is that we take the old process, put some AI in some parts of that process, rather than rethinking the process of claims handling, for example, and saying that where AI can be helpful and redefine a process taking care of the potentialities of AI.
Thanks, Marc. Maybe Philippe, on your side.
Yeah, so we have been working with some financial institutions here in Luxembourg, in the banking, but also in the insurance part. And well, the majority of the projects that we are being involved is in small parts, so not taking big processes like you are talking, but in small processes or activities where you can gain productivity and efficiency, which is the majority of the use cases that I see at the moment. So for the moment, I don't see very big disruptive approaches to change your business model or to create new products. I see more a focus on very quick results when it talks to efficiency and productivity. And in giving you some examples, so we work on a project where a company was using AI exactly to help their IT and software developer teams developing software and using models to develop or to learn the patterns of the team exactly to create software with the same kind of philosophy that the team was created. Also on the IT support desk, so which is some kind of claim management, but more on the requests for support, where people or companies are using AI exactly to help classifying IT support tickets, finding answers, and respond quicker to the users. And also, for example, something that is, let's say, more common, that is using Gen AI for chatbots. So putting internal chatbots in the companies on specific areas or processes to help the users. Normally on insurance companies, because of also data secrecy and all the let's say the guidelines that they have regarding the data, they look to implement chatbots or everything that is Gen AI locally on local infrastructures. Well, and we are supporting some of them on this kind of initiatives.
And we'll come back to that in a minute when we talk about sovereignty. Maybe before getting to Christian, Orna, on your side, and maybe both vis-à-vis of your view on the industry, but also as a VC, how do you see also the type of solution that can, today propose solution that could be of relevance for the insurance market?
So what we saw in the last few years is companies, mainly in the P&C side, by the way, but we also can see some solutions that are available for the life and health businesses. We saw AI kind of solution. AI is mainly about productivity. And when it comes to Gen AI, it enables the startup and the insurance company come up with a new solution with another layer, with new products and so on. And it was mentioned here, there is a challenge with the adoption, but we can also see that the employee do want to adopt, because basically what the tools enable them is to focus on the more complexity claims or underwriting, and all the kind of the routine work can go through the machine. So and another thing that we saw is that all the companies that I were meeting with like 4 or 5 years ago, so I know them for a while, now they add AI to their pitch. So that's a bit, but now we do know to identify the technology, the solution, and as I said before, it's more important to understand if there is a real problem before we adopt the solution. Yeah.
Maybe moving between the process part and the client dimension. So, Christian, can you elaborate, on what at Liberty Mutual you are doing with the group?
Sure. Yeah. So, as you mentioned about the use case earlier, right? So, what we did at Liberty is that, if you're part of the group, normally those projects are run at the central level, but we've been able to demonstrate to the group that this is a key enabler for our growth in Europe. And what we did is we talked to the different teams what their needs are with the use of AI, from underwriting to claims to compliance to all the way to the back office support, finance, actuarial, capital modeling, all of those. Obviously, they have their own wish list. But I think the most, I would say, gain is around the underwriting process. So what we develop internally with our team of engineers, and we call it AI Factory. And again, this is where the group strength comes in as an advantage, right? That, with the team of engineers and the resources that we have at the group, we've been able to build what we call a submission intelligence tool. What it does is it helps the underwriters process all the submission that comes in. So the emails that you've exchanged with your brokers, with your clients, the submission of data, whether in PDF or other files, we are able to harness them and put them in the tool such that the tool, in a matter of minutes or even seconds, can already provide conclusion about the risk. So it's about building the risk profile of that specific client by harnessing all those data that you have captured. And if you're missing something else, then it automatically sends notification to the brokers. So what it means is that compared to a typical manual underwriter sitting on their desk, maybe doing the job for, I don't know, days or weeks, versus processing the submission in a matter of minutes. So you can clearly see there's a very positive experience throughout that journey, that hopefully those underwriters can be much more productive, maybe do more of the value-adding activity, more of those broker relationship type of activities, right? So you can clearly see an example of where AI can be useful and productive.
Thanks, Christian. And Mark, you wanted to comment?
Just to say one thing, and I think what Omar said is very important in your introduction statement, saying there's no good win for somebody who doesn't know where to go. In fact, we have too much. We focus on the end-year result or the end 3 months result where we have to report, and we try to get short-term results, gains of efficiency, productivity, and so on. And we don't take the time to look a little bit further. I'm convinced that already with the capacities of AI of today, it would be possible if somebody would put some money on the table, a monoliner. You give these IT guys, these tech guys, a little bit an introductory lesson of what is insurance and what is regulatory. I promise you, I bet with you, that these guys don't need more than 18 months to have an AI company, AI insurance company running from A to Z. They have no legacies. I insist it's a monoliner. It is not a very complicated business, but I'm convinced that this today is possible. And that's why it is a little bit, my statement was run, Forrest, run. But Forrest only runs to the next crossroad, and then he doesn't know if he should go right or left, and he has no vision where to go at the end. Thanks, I think that's a challenge.
Okay, so I see that pretty ambitious, but coming back also to what you said before on the use case, so the second use case that you mentioned was more on the early warning signals or the augmented agents. So can you elaborate more on what has been experimented or put in place at Foyer there?
Normally insurers, as we all are, Foyer is too, we're waiting for the fact that the client says, I'm not happy, and canceling the insurance policy. But he's not doing that just out of a mood in the morning. He was unsatisfied for a long time. And if we have the right data to train our models in a way that they would spot that, that would be great. And then again, the objective could be, listen, nowadays we don't know anything when they cancel. If we have, by AI, and it's not necessarily generative AI, but if we have a model who could already say that, let's say, 40% or 50% of the cases, you could predict us that we could proactively go to that client, discuss with him, try to retain him. And if there only we would retain 50%, so we would gain 25% just in retaining the clients, which would reduce the effort we have commercially to replace these clients in order to continue to have a company which is growing.
So thanks, Mark. And so you see already a number of use cases on the process side, a number of use cases more on the connection with the client. maybe something that there is also a lot of debates is around the fact that is GenAI an enabler or something that can accelerate innovation. So I would like to have the perspective of you here in the panel around that. So maybe starting with Christian, what's your view on that?
I mean, definitely it's an enabler for innovation, right? I mean, the use case that I mentioned earlier, the first phase of that is really to improve productivity and efficiency within the underwriting team, but there's a possibility, and it's a possibility now, to have that interface directly with the broker. You know, for a typical international non-life insurance company, you work pretty much with big brokers, regional brokers, and I'm sure those brokers also have their own AI projects. So I think in a future world, I really see an environment where my agent, my AI persona, is talking to the AI persona of the brokers, that they could do their jobs between themselves without us being involved, especially for those flow business, like simple risk, right? So in a way, you're creating a new team member in the organization that is not really a human person, but is part of the team. So if you look at the endless possibilities of what it can do, it really is a transformational change. Yeah.
Thanks, Christian. Orna, looking back to you on the innovation, and again, you are also very much exposed to innovators. So what's your perspective on that?
So it's actually what GenAI allows is to add another layer. It's not just innovation, it's another layer of new products. We can use those tools to identify when customers want to leave us. We can help the customers by using signals from telematics, from wearable devices, for any data points, and we have tons of data points, even within the legacy system that we can use in order to help the customer and help at the end us, I mean the insurance industry, both to provide better service, but also to improve the business results. So we can help with the claim handling, but we're good now also post-claims, but we can also help pre-claims and help the customer, whether it's a business or individual, to prevent the risk, to mitigate risk, and maybe to avoid the risk. But still we hear if something bad happened, we will help the customer or the individual or the business when something happened. But we will be able to know like as soon as it happened. For example, we talk about, not now, but before, about a car accident, so we can know that it's happened and send the ambulance if needed and so on, in order to both provide a service earlier, but also maybe reduce fraud.
If you allow me, because we're talking about claim management and basically and getting what you are saying about sentiment analysis, because in the end is understanding what your customer wants to tell you and is not telling verbally, and you want to understand the mood of your customer exactly to try to reduce churn and probably even sell more. No, there is a lot of examples like that already today. So we are working with a very tiny, small company in Luxembourg. It's not from the insurance market. It's a very tiny company, and they have a support team that receives a lot of requests from customers, but a lot of and one of their major challenges was to understand when the customer calls me, is it because he's happy or not happy, and if it is not happy, what can I do? How can I instruct my people to change the mood of the customer? And if it is happy, what can I do to sell more? And basically, they are implementing, they are already in production and then develop their own model exactly to help their claim management team to understand. Basically, it's a model that uses sentiment analysis, but also other kinds of techniques, exactly to help the claims and the guys that are working with the customers, first to help to reduce the churn, and well, hopefully to also to increase the sales.
Thanks, Philippe. And I know that in the prep session, we had a bit of a discussion, Mark, on the innovation and the positioning of innovation and GenAI in the innovation process. And you have been running a hackathon in Foyer. So can you give a bit of perspective on your view on innovation and GenAI?
So when we do a hackathon, we put a lot of people who are working in the company together to have some innovative ideas. So we're not yet on the point where we put 12 computers or 12 GPUs beside each other to compete. I think, to come back on your initial question, AI will be an enabler to develop new ideas and to push innovation. It will never replace human creativity. And if we would come to that point, to that AIs would be as good in proposing innovations than humans, then we have reached the point of singularity. Then the world will change fundamentally. Then we have to start thinking if machines are ruling us or we are ruling the machines. And I think we are still very far from that.
Thanks. Speaking about innovation, obviously one of the, and talking about GenAI as a whole, obviously there is a need for investment, and Luxembourg is providing a number of incentives or ways to support the market to accelerate on that. You know, the tax credit, the IP regime, Lux Innovation initiatives. There are new discussions happening also at this point in time around the Feed for AI, for instance, and how to extend it further. So, I mean, are we using fully what is at hand to support and accelerate on that journey? Are you using those mechanisms, Marc, at Foyer, for instance?
Yeah, we're trying to. Of course we're trying to. But as I was also listening to the panel before, but we offer all these things, but very often, administratively, to reach these help, to reach these tax advantages, it is quite difficult. It's really complicated administratively. And I can understand public services saying we have to watch out where the taxman's money goes. But if you make it so complicated, and you have to employ 15 civil servants just to be sure that 100,000 euros don't go the wrong way, then I think we're missing something out. AI, anyhow, the IT technology nowadays is developing so quickly, we just can't wait on an administrative authorization for 12 months. That's absurd. That's just absurd. I'm now on the chairman's position, so I can speak it more openly, but I think it's totally ridiculous.
Yeah. Philippe, on Lux Innovation, maybe there are a number of things happening.
Well, I'm not from Lux Innovation, but we are working with them, definitely. Yeah. So one thing that I totally agree with Marc is that a good idea today is obsolete in 6 months. So you cannot wait 6 months to have any support for starting an idea on a project. And I believe that Lux provide Lux Innovation, and the consortium that we are setting up in Luxembourg, that the name is AI Factory. Yeah. By the way, it's not your AI Factory, will be the Luxembourgish AI Factory. But this concept that joins a lot of members and will provide help in 5 different sectors. So helping with funding and with programs, with training, with infrastructure, with regulatory support, and finally, last but not the least, also with everything that is consulting. The idea will be exactly to have that services close to the companies and easy to access. Of course, that it will not be from one day to the other that these things will be simplified. We are working on it. We are totally aware that we need to do much more. But like I said, we are also aware that if we don't do it right and now and quickly, well, the things probably will not be also helpful for the companies.
Thanks. So we have explored the opportunities, we have talked about process, we have talked about client, we have talked about innovation. Let's move from opportunity to responsibility, if you may. And obviously, it's about trust, it's about data, it's about governance. That will also determine whether AI is successful, AI projects are successful. So, and start with data and quality. I mean, we know that data is a foundation for GenAI and to bring value. So what are the main challenges or success factors vis-à-vis of that? And maybe I'll start with Marc on your side. How do you see that happening? Or what's your view on that?
First of all, you have to organize your data. You have to understand what you have to have a good data ontology. Otherwise, that's a basis. Otherwise, it will be, excuse me, as in, as out. It's as simple as that. That's, I think that it's very important. For the rest, as it was already said in the panel discussion before, we have still rules in Luxembourg which are dating from the last century. And we're regulating how to go with horse cars, and our ambition is to go to the moon. Professional secrecy rules is exactly that. We cannot, you will announce now probably, and it has been announced that there are some ticks which are now authorized, which will make things a little bit easier. But just the idea that we have to protect, in order to protect data, to keep them in the company, like in good medieval times, you had the castle, and you would build around your data even some extra walls. That's totally absurd. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a responsibility for the companies to organize their data. But there's also a responsibility of the legislator to give to the insurance companies a regulatory framework which is up to the expectations we all have to reach, to develop in the next 10 years.
Thanks. And that's very important indeed. So Christian, also on Liberty Mutual and vis-à-vis also of the group and local group, how that's being organized, what are the challenges there?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, as Mark mentioned, data infrastructure is key to developing your own AI tool, or you're running your own AI project. And as an insurance industry, we sit in a very big pile of data, right, that you accumulated over the years. And it's probably one of our, if not the biggest, strategic asset, if I may. And one of the sort of roadblocks, and hopefully not a showstopper when we run these AI use cases, is that when we're trying to build a model where you come across with data that needs to be protected, so you're not able to proceed because there's a roadblock. So you try to find a workaround, whether you anonymize the data, so you can build your models, you can build the trend, so that it can be useful. But this is the part where it really is key, as Mark mentioned, about how we evolve the regulatory framework so that we can support that innovation. Because sometimes I feel like it's better that we let them loose and do their experimentation in a controlled environment, rather than at the very beginning you already put those limits. Mm-hmm. So to me, it feels like it is a deterrent to innovation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks, Christian. I'm looking at the other side of the fence with Philippe on your side and Lux Provide, because obviously you are also working on that with the clients. So what's your perspective on that?
Well, first of all, I agree that regulations blocks data sharing, and well, there is several techniques that can be used, like Christian mentioned one of them, that is anonymizing data. The other one could be using synthetic data, so creating your data with, or even, there is other techniques that is using models with federated learning. So you have a central model that will learn with the data from different sources without getting the data from the sources. So there is different techniques, but in the end, well, data is crucial. And if you don't have data, you cannot train your models and you cannot have results. On our case, on some of the examples that we have been working, and exactly because of these blockers that we have with the data, so in some of the cases, what we do, in some cases, we can bring the data to our premises and we work with the customer on our premise. On other cases, the data stays on the premises of the customer, and basically what we do, we provide the capacity, so the infrastructure, using of course the dedicated line, but giving them the capacity that they don't have at home to extend the capacity they need to run a model or to train a model or to do something with any use case. It
Thanks.
will depend of the different challenges that the customer is facing and also of the data and even the data sets that you have.
Thanks, Felipe. Moving to the next topic, data is one. Governance as a whole is also a very important topic. So I don't want to take maybe on that question around governance and whether or not, how to apply the right, governance into the company in order to manage the AI moving forward in a responsible manner.
Yeah.
Christian?
I mean, I can maybe share our experience here. So at the group level, we have what we call the Responsible AI Committee, which sets the tone and the overall framework for how we use and adopt AI into the company, right? And that is based on, ethical standards, moral clarity, respect for fairness, compliance with the relevant regulations. So that's the foundation of how you run your AI as in the company, whether it's the use of whether it's Copilot or our own ChatGPT version to running AI projects in the lab. And within running those projects, it's also very important that you have your oversight committee. The oversight committee not just tracks the progress, whether the priorities remain on track, but also making sure, as we said, data privacy is part of that governance, right? Making sure that when those engineers, when they build their models, they make sure that data is protected. It's very easy to cut corners. It's very tempting because I think there's a race towards launching the tool. So sometimes you get so frustrated with those roadblocks, but that's where your oversight committee comes in to help you with that. And then at the level of the board governance, that's also very important. I think we need to start training our board members in terms of AI. I'm sure there's a lot of trainings available in the market, but also internally, you have to make sure that your board is part of that journey. And the board has the utmost responsibility in terms of the use of AI in the company. So I think they need to be part of that journey.
Thanks. And Marc, on your side at Foyer, where do you stand vis-à-vis the setup of an AI governance framework?
I will try to answer two levels. In Europe, we are very good in regulating something which doesn't exist yet and hasn't yet developed. One of the good examples is the AI Act. We have already found regulation, even though we don't know yet what is the extent of the problem. And I could still understand the political thoughts about it if it weren't for the fact that now, since some months on the other side of the ocean, somebody else is ruling, and we just say, oh, sorry, have we gone too far? So that's one thing. The other thing, I think companies which are successful have values. Values. They have values to protect their stakeholders, to protect, of course, their employees, to protect their shareholders, but also to protect their clients. And if you act according to values, before any written governance, that's the first and the major line of defense, if I may discuss it like that. And then later on, you can start creating your governance, which we do. But on the other hand, we are still at a level of exploring what AI could do to us. And already framing it too narrowly on a governance, I think that's a little bit a challenge.
Okay, so a challenge. Now, I'm still continuing with you, Christian, because one of the part of our governance is also around explainability, ensuring explainability. I know that you are doing a number of things to ensure that whenever a new service embedding AI is put in production, there is also a way to accommodate with that explainability. So can you elaborate?
Yeah, I mean it's a big challenge, right? Because I think there's a level of distrust on how the inner workings work. How do you explain that to a common person when the risk selection, the risk conclusion was this versus what the manual person or the person would conclude. So it's very difficult in terms of how you go through that exercise and making sure that everyone understands the journey, which is why change management is very important. And I think when we were running the experiment, then you gave the use case that I mentioned earlier. We gave the set of underwriters 10 files. There is one cohort that is doing it manually, and there's another cohort that was using the tool. Obviously, you can see which one performed the fastest. And the conclusion was that not only that it was the fastest, it was also achieved a certain level of accuracy as the manual or as the person. But then you have these people that in the organization that are not necessarily sort of convinced with the AI, right? So how do you bring them into that side that they could actually support it in the future? So it's a big challenge.
Yeah. Thanks. And I see that Mark, you want to react.
I just want to recall one thing. Insurance companies have always worked on data. I think that's very important. A tariff, which I will do in car insurance and house insurance, I have to look at data. That has been done the last 5 years. That has been done the last 50 years. And in 1922, when Foyer was created, what did they do? They didn't have much data, but they still looked quite carefully at the data. Models are nothing new to us, because all our tariffs have been, of course, at the beginning, deterministic models, then stochastic models, now there are AI models, but explainability stays a key function. And there's where humans come in. When I was CEO and somebody came to me and gave me data for tariff, and I said, this is now the tariff. Look, Mark, we have to raise by 50% or eventually by 30%, which I never really understood, but a 50% raise. I said, this is not possible. I don't believe in the data. Explain me why. And it's this reflex has always been in an insurance business. Explainability of data and the explainability of models is important. But yes, we can do it quicker.
Yeah.
We can do it quicker. And AI will do it quicker. But as such, saying that we're discovering now, insurance companies, we're discovering that there's data and that we have to handle data and we have to be careful about data. No, and that we have not to give full trust to the model, whatever it says. That's in our DNA. At least I hope.
Anna, you wanted to say something?
Just share that as the regulation come in and some people in the organization that don't always trust the model, so there are also startups that's the solution for that, to organize the data from one hand, to monitor the AI models from the others. So these days you can find a solution for everything. And when we talk about, we didn't mention that, but InsurTech, which is insurance technology, it's not only about insurance company or digital insurance company or MGA, it's also about InsurTech enabler, enabling the insurance company provide better service, to do things more accurate, faster, and earn more money. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you shouldn't.
I'm just kidding.
We are in the business of
no, provide better service and pay claims fast as we can.
So I think now, because you mentioned something that we haven't talked about so much yet, which is people. And we talk about AI, a lot of discussion that we have nowadays is around people for 2 dimensions. Of course, the first one is the expertise on GenAI, the expertise on AI, the talents that need to be there, the upskilling of the people that need to be there. But the other side is also the adoption part, when we are working with AI. So, I mean, Christian, on that, you want to comment how you are, where you are now?
I'll start by saying that the adoption of AI, there's a big disconnect in the age groups, right? You have the baby boomers and the later part of the Gen X, where they are at the top of the leadership ladder, if you call it that way. And these people are the ones in charge of setting the tone, setting the strategy, and yet they're the least convinced about AI. And then you have the parts of the age group. I'm not trying to be controversial here, but Mark is an exception. And then you have the bigger part of the millennials and the earlier part of the Gen X, which is probably the main consumer of the technology, more convinced, and yet they're not able to shape the direction of the strategy. And then you have the Gen Z, that for them, it's fear because AI is taking over their jobs. So you have different cohorts of people there that with different interests and different objectives. And you can also see that in the company, there's different levels of appreciation, understanding of the technology, and which is why I raised the point of change management, how you bring those people in the journey together so that they share the same vision as you. So that's key to this.
And you see in the company today the resistance, do you see the movement of upskilling people? Where do you stand on that journey?
I mean, in general, the adoption has been great. At least that's our experience, that people are excited about it. People are realizing that this is really a game changer for them in how they do their day-to-day lives. We always talk about the work-life balance, right? If you associate that technology with work-life balance, I think the message resonates better. So I think that's how you should probably frame it in your organization, that the tool is there to help you and not to necessarily to replace you. So you raised the point about upskilling, right? So we talk about agentic AI persona earlier, and how this disruptive technology can bring us into that world. And sometimes you realize that there's so much inefficiency in our processes, whether a finance person talking to an actuarial person just because numbers don't reconcile. So in a world where it's about AI, agentic AI persona, those AI persona from different teams could effectively just work together to sort out differences in numbers. And the human person could talk in a more value-adding, topics, right? So whether talking to the client or something else that is much more meaningful. So overall, it improves the experience of people. That's how we should see it.
Thanks, Christian. Marc, on the foyer.
We have two questions, in fact. Those who are interested in working as AI specialists, data engineers, you might call them whatever they want. There we have to find an environment which is attractive to them. Environment on the tools they can use, environments on what they can do, and also, at the end of the day, how well or how badly they are paid. And there, I think the impact regime which the government has proposed can help us quite a lot. Then you have the other part. All these who are working in our companies and are afraid, could be afraid, of what's happening to them. And there you have to have a short-term solution and a long-term solution. So short-term solution is tell them that you secure at the beginning their jobs. Don't go into a claims department and say, I want 75% of claims handled fully automatically, and that's why I fire 75% of our claims handling. Head of department is sitting here, so she's laughing because we're not doing that. Because we're trying to tell the people that they have perspective. Yeah. Education is very important to let them go somewhere else. And then a macro view. We have had several revolutions over the last 150 years. The steam machine was one revolution. The car was one revolution. Internet was one revolution. And now AI is the revolution. And every time it was the same saying, jobs will disappear and it will go worse for the people. What happened is that quality of life in general of the whole population has increased. And the benefits on the long term of AI will have to be shared in the society. In the society. Before World War II, people were working 54 hours in Luxembourg. I don't know. And they had 10 days of holiday or 5 days of holiday. Now in the financial sector, there's normally 40 hours per week and 33 days of holiday. Who doesn't say that in 20 years and I hope there's no representative of any union here which will quote me, so please don't tell them. But who will not, eventually in 20 years, we will work 25 hours and have 60 days of holiday. I don't know. But I think I'm a very optimistic person. I think as long as we manage to control the technology, there's a lot of benefits, not only on the short term for our profit and loss accounts, but also on long term for the society as such.
Thanks, Mark. We are coming to the end, and I would like to have a last remark and last question. And the last question is vis-à-vis of where we stand today, where we were last year, and where we will be next year. So and that's my question, and when we meet in the ACAID Insurance Day next year, what do you expect will have changed between now and then? Maybe Orna, do you want to say a word on that?
Sure. So first, we don't know what we don't know. So we need to realize and understand that. So that's first. Second, I'm sure like the Gen AI is an accelerator, and some of the companies will adapt, and some of the companies will build a solution internally, like in your companies. Some of the companies will buy solutions from tech companies. And at the end, I think that the technology will help us to maybe, I hope, to create a bit of a better world, and also help the customer going back to prevention and protection, and help them to reduce the risk at least a bit.
Thanks. Christian?
Yeah, I may be a little bit pessimistic here, but I don't see a big change happening yet. As Orna said, there will be early movers into this, which will be their competitive advantage, right? But I think it's a slow build towards really commercializing the use of AI and being part of the normal technology, the way we consume, say, electricity or internet. It will be very slow to fully integrate that into the economy, such that it really is become part of our day-to-day lives. So, but again, as I mentioned earlier, insurance industry in general is ripe for this type of disruption. We have the money. We don't have those big legacy systems. So, let's just jump into that. That's really the message here.
Thank you, Christian. Philippe?
Well, if you are asking Elon Musk, probably he will answer you that next year we will have here physical AI talking about it. But I don't believe on that, at least for 1 year time frame. But I totally believe that there will be more adoption, less probably fear about the adoption, people embracing more the tools and understanding that they can help them to be more productive, and in the end they will not replace them, they will augment them. I'm a strong believer of augmenting capacity through the tools and through AI, and probably, in 5 years we will have here physical AI guys talking about it. And we will be all on vacations. Because
we will be all on vacation.
Exactly.
Mark?
In fact, when you take, we look next year at the panel of this year, we will still say more or less the same. So that sounds a little bit a pessimistic view, but it is not. What's happening is an exponential development. And I give you an example. When you have a 4 or 5 year old kid, you are every day as a parent with him, and you think that he's still behaving just the same than a year ago. And then Aunt Elizabeth comes in, which only for Christmas comes and visit us. She will say, oh, the kid has changed enormously. He's grown, he's talking differently, and that's what's happening. We're not aware on a year-to-year date what has fundamentally changed. But if we step back 5 years, then I think we will be very astonished of what has happened over the 5 last years.
Thank you. I stay on that last message, and I want really that we give a round of applause for our panelists of this evening. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks.
You need to have a selfie with the audience. I'm just kidding. No, we do. I'm still with the mic